Hey everybody, it's another month, and with another month comes a lot more questions. So let's jump into the first 4. And the first question is, Katie, how do I explain dissociation to anyone when I don't really understand it myself? I always thought it was a normal daydream or a flashback, getting stuck in it too much. Thanks. This is a great question, and it's going to depend on your audience as to how you really want to explain it to them. But let me give you a few ideas. And the first idea is just explaining it like your brain pulling the ripcord. That's worked for me, talking about it to you. And so what I tell people is it's when we're so overwhelmed, when you're just maxed out, you feel super stressed, or you have something happen that triggers a bad memory, your brain's like, I can't deal with this, I'm out of here. Wow! And it flies away. That's dissociation. Also, you could tell them something that I've explained to people is like, you know how you drive home from work and you may not even remember driving because you're just so kind of tired from the day and just spacey. Imagine if that was your whole day, or that happened for hours after something triggered you. That can give them a reference point. So those are 2 of the main options that I use. But the real truth about it is that when we have a trauma, our brain can't process it, right? Like those marbles, they splinter all over the floor. And so as we're going about our day and making other memories, we stumble upon little splinters, which we call triggers. But you could just say they're like little bits that a scent, a sound, a person, or whatever that reminds us of that trauma. And our brain doesn't have the capacity to manage it. And so it pulls us out, and it kind of feels like we're watching ourselves, or we're out of body, or we're disconnected from the people we're talking to. And so that's really why it happens, and hopefully by me just talking it out with you right now gave you some ideas on how to explain it to others. And question number 2 is, Katie, my newish therapist is going on maternity leave in a few months. I'm not sure of my plan for that break, but I did have a consultation with another therapist. She specializes in attachment, and I think seeing her while my other T is off might be a good idea, since it would be a break from intense trauma therapy, but still something I want to work on, and I might get a lot out of it. You and the Kenyans have been following this attachment journey with me. When I asked her if I could see her a few times in the months leading up to my T's leave so it wasn't such a shock to my system, she even reassured me that would help me develop a more secure attachment to my current therapist, leaving for a week break and then going back and reattaching, etc., and help me build trust with her. All that said, what if I get super attached to my temporary therapist? Can I see them both? What's the point? Geez Louise, I cannot seem to win with therapists. Plus, I cannot seem to bring this up with my current therapist because I don't even want to admit she's leaving, and I'm worried I'll just get super upset. Help! This is a great question. I know a lot of us worry about attachment to therapists, but it's kind of part of the process. It's part of setting up healthy boundaries, understanding our attachment issues, and working them out with the therapeutic relationship to build healthier ones. So I know that this may come as a shock, but don't really worry about becoming too attached to your therapist. That's our job to worry. So let it go, okay? I know you're not going to, but I'm just telling you that because it really is the therapist's job. And another thing is, working with an attachment-based therapist is amazing when we struggle with attachment. The boundaries, the communication, the setup of therapy is so structured and rigid and clearly explained. It's wonderful, and it can do wonders for those of us who struggle with attachment in the first place. So I 100% think you should see someone in the interim, especially give you a break from intense trauma therapy and allow you to work through some of the attachment things. And honestly, then, if you feel good with the attachment-based therapist at the time when your other therapist comes back, it's okay to stay with one. But if you feel that they each individually serve specific purposes in your treatment, you can see 2 at once. They just have to communicate a lot. You have to let them talk to one another, like signing a release, but it can be beneficial as long as they deal with 2 separate things. That's where it gets a little complicated because you may be asked to repeat the same thing multiple times to tell both therapists. And so I prefer it to be one, but if you feel like they both have their own specialties and it's beneficial to you, there's nothing wrong with it. And the last thing I'll say is to please bring this up with your current therapist. It's okay to lose it. It's okay to be upset that she's leaving. Those are all things you should utilize these last weeks with her. You should utilize that time to talk about it because it's normal. Like I said, the attachment and the issues, that come up with therapists in therapy is all part of the process. And the more we can communicate about it, the healthier attachments we're going to form in the future. Question number 3. Katie, can you explain in your opinion what is the role of a peer recovery specialist? Now, the truth about peer recovery specialists is they're actual certified and trained peer support people. Okay, and I'm just saying that because some people can be peer counselors and they're still kind of trained in some capacity, I believe. Like even the crisis text line people, those crisis counselors are trained, but they're not licensed professionals. And same with peer, what is it called? Peer support, peer recovery specialists. They're trained and certified, okay, but they're not licensed. And what it means usually is that the peer person is just that. They're a peer. They've been through some of the same things you've been through. They've overcome some of the issues you may be working on, and they can offer not only their training stuff they've learned, like how to better communicate or teaching you certain tools, they can also offer up their own experience and what worked for them. And while I don't think every treatment team needs to include a peer recovery specialist, it can be really beneficial if it helps for us to get some insight from someone who's already been there. So if that's something that you would really like, then I think adding them in is great. And the fourth and final question for this video, but there are tons more questions and videos coming your way, is, Kati, I was sexually assaulted recently. Now what? What legal options do I have in the States? How do I bring it up? What should I expect with my therapist? And what do I do to care for myself? Overall, how do I survive this? First, I just want to say how terribly sorry I am that this happened to you, but you can survive it, okay? And I want to go through your questions. The first is, what legal options do I have? Now, you have the option to file the report and seek justice. But I want to talk a little bit about that because I'm speaking with another Kenyan who's going through this, and she wasn't aware of how intensive and harmful that can be, because once we decide to report, we are going to have to describe what happened exactly in detail many, many, many times to the detectives, to the first person who takes our report. They might make you repeat it to make sure that you're not changing any facts and that it is actually true and it really did happen, which I know is horrible. And it feels horrible and it can be re-traumatizing. So having a support person with you while you do all of this, wonderful. Then there can be lineups where we have to go through and watch, see if we can find the person if we don't know who it is. They're going to have you get an examination and they're going to want a lot of blood work, and if you already haven't been to the doctor, they'll make you go to the doctor. And so I just want you to know that there's a lot in that legal process in order for you to get justice, and it can be really, really difficult and really triggering. That being said, I do believe that if you feel capable, you should seek justice, because those dirtbags belong in prison and they don't belong walking around on the streets potentially harming someone else. As far as what to do or how to bring it up with your therapist, just blurt it out. I know I usually say write it down in practice, just blurt it out. There's no nice way to say it. It's always going to be hard. It just happened and this is your support person. Let them know. Even if it's at the end of one session because you don't know if you really want to talk about it. Have patients do that all the time. We call it doorknob disclosures. Totally cool. You can just say, oh, hey, by the way, I was sexually assaulted last week. I'll see you. Okay, see you next week. And that's fine, because then your therapist can bring it up in the following session and give you the whole hour to even start talking about it. And as far as what your therapist is going to do, they're just going to support you. They're going to listen, and they're going to offer tools and techniques and help that they know of, whether that's groups or what next steps. They can help you file the police report. They can help you, prepare for anything that you have to do when it comes to the legal proceedings, if that's something you want to do. They're just going to ask questions and work to support you, unless you're under 18. In which case, then we as clinicians, or if you're a dependent adult, which dependent adult just means that we have someone else that takes care of us because we're not able to care for ourselves, whether it's because of a physical or mental disability or anything like that. But then we'd have to file our own report as well. But other than that, it's just support, it's just understanding, and it's a kind, caring ear that can help you process through all that happened. And as to how you survive this, one step at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time. Just give yourself the time to process it and overcome it. I know it's horrible because this happened and that person's a piece of garbage and deserves to be in prison, like I said, but we have to give our brain and our body the time to heal and to put it away. We talk about rebuilding those marbles, the way that our brain stores memory. If we give ourselves the time to slowly piece it together, we can process through the trauma and we can roll it away, but we can't rush it. So if it feels overwhelming, if you're dissociating, if you're having flashbacks all the time, let your therapist know so that you go at a pace that works with you. But also groups can be really helpful and another way to share an experience and to get other people's tips and tools and tricks and just support overall. I hope you found those answers helpful. Thank you all so much for your support each and every month. It's because of each one of you that my channel can still exist. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you like these videos and the live streams and all that stuff. And there are more questions coming your way, so I'll see you over there. Bye.